Right, thank you all for welcoming me. I'm actually on a week's break from Public Health Wales today, hence the T-shirt. I'm photographing a conference all week that's happening at the Royal College, so I've broken out of that for a little bit to present to you today. It's a bit of a loaded title, this one. I didn't think it was until someone pointed it out to me and said, oh, that sounds a bit... But actually, it's about my experiences of living with depression whilst also working in our national public health body. The one doesn't cause the other. Just for the live stream's benefit. So, next slide, please, Jamie. When we were asked to present, or on the websites we've had, we have to do a little pen portrait, a biography and things. So this is my biography. It's quite embarrassing, actually, because I sent this in for a conference last year it was. I said, yeah, here's my biography. And it ended up being twice as long as all the professors, all the Knights of the Realm, and I could not be further from that level of hierarchy, but there we are. So that's my professional biography, but there's an alternative biography that I could present, and it's this one. So I've worked for Public Health Wales since December 2009, and during this time I've been absent from work for approximately 9 months due to depression. He will probably be again at some point in his future career. So that's the bit I don't put that in the main biography, obviously, but that's for your sake. Next slide. So a bit of a personal history, and yeah, I get a bit shaky when I say all of this, really. But I was born in 1985 to a pigeon fancying family. As you can see, I didn't grow up or even start to become a pigeon fancier at the age of, I think I was about 1.5, 2 there. But when I was born with a brain hemorrhage. The umbilical cord was wrapped around my neck, 10 days in special care, and my parents were told that if I survived, I'd be severely disabled. So in many ways, it's been a perfect life after that diagnosis, really, but obviously not entirely perfect. And the reason I want to tell you that is because whenever I've spoken to clinicians, GPs, mental health practitioners, for me it's always felt a bit like the bingo moment when we go through the medical history, where bingo, that's the reason he's got depression, that's the reason he's got anxiety, that's the reason he's done these stupid things over the years. And I think that's the thing we often forget is people with depression have got their own individual stories, their own individual histories, and sometimes that can be cited as a reason. And we all know there isn't necessarily a reason. For me, that's the thing that's always come back to me. Oh, there's a chemical imbalance because of what happened back then. Maybe it's true, maybe it isn't, who knows. Since then, as you'll see now, why on earth do they employ me in public health? Because I'm the most accident-prone person going. I've had 4 traumatic brain injuries afterwards, concussions, actually one of which, I'm going to tell the story, one of which was in my annual appraisal 3 years ago, when I didn't realise how close I was to a concrete pillar, was just mid-conversation, and smacked the corner of it on the back of my head. And that actually, I won't tell this story, but that leads me into why I'm also a photographer now as well, but we can talk about that another time. It's a very long story, that one. And again, that's always been seen as a contributory factor when I go back with, I'm suffering with depression, doctors go through your medical history, another bingo moment. And of course, I have also led to some personality changes, I've got to be honest, with me. I was first diagnosed at 16, so it's gone through school, sixth form, really at 16, university, I've had incidents, employment in the private sector and employment in the public sector, so I've got a lot of compare and contrast I can do. So in short, I've got a unique set of circumstances, but so has everybody else that suffers with depression. We've all got unique circumstances. So this is what I'm mainly talking about today, is working for Public Health Wales from 2009 onwards. So I had my job interview in October 2009, and it was actually the Wales Centre for Health still when I started on December 9th, the dying embers before we became Public Health Wales in March 2010. Now, when I started, I was still living back in the Midlands, so I was liaising, sorting things out for the month before I actually started. I'd been, viewed a property, paid the deposit, all sorted. Then I had a phone call from our occupational health at the time, which was really terrifying, because I'd put down I had depression on the medical history form, I guess, or the pre-employment checks. And the phone calls that I had really made me feel that they were going to withdraw my offer of employment. So for me, first impression was it's going to be a welcoming place to work, really. I say that it's hopefully changed now, but I know actually it has changed now since then. Because I've presented this presentation before to our HR colleagues, or people in OD as they are now, HR in old money. 2012 was my first episode of depression whilst being employed by Public Health Wales. It actually was just after the Olympics, and that's one of the things I always say. For me, it's kind of like the Olympics. It comes up every 4 years. It was well timed that year. That was approximately 6 to 8 weeks, so I was off work, and then a staged return, which was really well managed by managers, colleagues, welcoming me back. I think I did afternoons only at that stage. Actually, there's quite an interesting anecdote about Mansell there, because I was taking the medication, new medication I'd never had before. I'd take it in the morning, and about 10:30 every morning I'd start tremoring, my legs would be going, the nerves were like this, and it was getting embarrassing in work, really. So I went to Mansell when he still had chair, and I said, "Can you see anything I can do to stop this?" And it was the simplest answer. I don't know if you remember this. He just turned to me and says, "Why don't you take them at night, and then you'll sleep through it?" It was a brilliant solution. Whether I was doing river dance during the night, I'll never know. But at least it stopped me banging the desk and shaking the chair. And I was a sexual health practitioner at the time, so you don't want to be shaking about when you've got that job. It can look quite unsightly if people don't know the full story. 2015 was the second episode. This was a really major incident, actually. Really quite scary for me. And I was off for about 5 months in total with that one. But in this case, it could have been a shorter incident because it just coincided with when our occupational health service switched from Cardiff and Vale to another provider. And because of that switch, they cancelled my return to work appointment. So I ended up having one of those 5 months I was absent. I didn't actually need to be absent, really, but they couldn't let me back in work. So that was just unfortunate, frankly. But and again, it's something worth bearing in mind for other employers. But being an employee with depression has been really supportive, and there's a risk here. I've listed names of people. There's always a risk I've forgot people here, but I think that's the main people who've had a direct involvement, who've known everything and have helped me directly, and you can pay me later, everyone I've mentioned. Mansell, you can pay me a tenner. Actually, I'll let you off because of that nice intro. But return to work, when I look at the 2015 incident compared to 2012, definitely improved. Because, as Mansell said earlier, we're getting better, the culture is changing, and I think that's hopefully true in other employers. I've always wondered if my experience, which has been pretty positive, apart from the little processy things, it's been positive for me. People have been really welcoming. I was lucky to work in our central organisation, the head office, if you like. But is that the case for everyone in our employer? I don't know. And I've heard some stories that it hasn't been well managed in other parts. Of course, under confidence, so I can't go into any details there, really. But hopefully, touch wood, everything's much more improved now. Next slide. Always get asked when you go to the doctor, is it work-related stress? Are you stressed at work? Well, of course I'm stressed at work. I work in the NHS. Always stressed. Who isn't? We're always busy. If we're not busy, we're thinking about being busy. So it's difficult to answer that if X equals Y or if one leads to the other. For me, it's never been the root cause, but I can't say that. I can't say it's never been a contributory factor, at least. And again, I emphasise every individual is different, and policies, wherever you're employed, need to take this into account. We can't just treat everyone the same. We treat everyone with a broken arm, switch the mouse to the other arm, give her a bit more space on your desk. It's not like that. So, and I asked a former line manager to also contribute to this presentation with the manager's perspective. So this is someone who managed me during all those times. I'm not going to name any names, Malcolm, over there. And this is what he says. So we need to encourage sufferers to be open and frank about their illness by recognising and treating it as any other chronic condition that may well be controlled for much of the time, but as I can't say that word, exacerbations and relapses from time to time. And you certainly endured the exacerbations at times, I'll be honest. Learning to spot the approaching crisis and trigger points is largely experiential process. Can you stop using those big words when I'm reading? Science will differ between different sufferers, and that's so true. I can emphasise that myself as well. Depression is not the same as stress. So true. Managers are not immune to depression themselves. So that's the other thing we need to bear in mind. Next slide, please. And that's that, really. So I'm not sure. What time's the question session? I'm not sure if... Okay, I am around for the question session. But if you want to catch me in private or anything like that, there's the details. And I hope that was helpful and enlightening, really, because if we can't get it right as a public health body, how can we expect other employers to get it right? That's my... Thank you.